Morning to you and welcome.
Thanks very much. Good morning.
Now, Professor, are South Africans going to experience a new trend of more and more independent candidates campaigning for ward councillors during this year's elections? What's your observation?
Well, that is definitely possible. In the past, we've seen that the political parties were still the focus of attention, especially because of the fact that the political parties, or half of the candidates, are based on proportional representation. The other half are individually elected councillors. But that at the same time encouraged, especially the individually elected councillors, the 50%, encouraged the possibility of independent candidates. We've seen it in the past, but we've also seen in the past is not necessarily independents, but also small organizations, local organizations, civic organizations, civil society organizations that became involved in the elections in the past. There's more than 100 of them at this stage already registered with the IEC, so potentially they can really participate in these elections.
Now, according to the Independent Electoral Commission, the number of independent candidates grew from 663 in 2006 to 754 in 2011. Where are all these people coming from? Are they just ordinary community members or disgruntled political party members, or is it just organizations formed by people that are disgruntled with current government?
Yes, it's a bit of all that you are mentioning. Some of them, as you have indicated, in 2011 there was lots of discontent within the ANC. We also can think, for example, about Matatiel earlier on, where they formed a so-called independent ANC candidates. We can also think about Tlokwe now in the meantime in Potchefstroom, where something similar happened. I think what normally is the case, that when there's a nomination process and the losers very often then break away from their political party and become independents. But what we've also seen, especially in the smaller towns, like in the Karoo, for example, there's movements like the South African Independent Civic Organization, the Independent Karoo group, and others, who in some cases, like Prince Albert in the past, for example, they actually outvoted the main political party. So then there's a feeling that local government should be less about party politics and should more be about the issues on the ground, and therefore then there's a preference for independent candidates.
Do you feel perhaps, Professor, that these individuals or smaller parties are going to have an impact in shaping our political landscape of the municipalities?
Yes, they do. Again, especially in smaller municipalities where there's sometimes one party doesn't have a majority on its own and then needs a partner for a coalition formation. And very often they can play that role. And then with one or two or three councillors, they can actually form the balance of power. So in those situations, they certainly do. In the bigger areas, especially in the metropolitan areas, the independents don't play such an important role, because there the political parties are still the focus of attention and the focus also of mobilization, because they need more money, more financial resources for their election campaigns, compared to the smaller places where it is not so necessary to have all that resources available.
Mm-hmm. But isn't it really expensive to be an independent and participate in the election?
Not if you are an independent candidate on your own. The moment you start to work together with other independents, then obviously it becomes more expensive. But if you are just one person standing as an independent in a ward, it is, for most people, it will be relatively affordable. Mm-hmm. And therefore also, the rewards afterwards. Nowadays, councillors can make almost a career out of being a councillor. The income, the salary that they receive is not anymore an honorarium. So that means that over time they do receive some resources that can support their political work.
Now, looking at that, is that why we see so much contestations within the local government, in the municipalities to become councillors?
Yes, I personally think that is one of the main reasons. The stakes are becoming higher and higher in order to become a councillor. The benefits of it is also therefore much higher, and therefore the rewards for the councillor himself or herself, as well as those people closely associated with him. We all know the socio-economic situation in South Africa. And to be a councillor, to become a councillor means, many people, it can be a form of survival. And the families and others close to them. So that is why the competition is so intense. It's not merely to serve a community, but it is also for their own survival, for their own interest, and to be able to create a career for them. Because some councillors ultimately over time move up to either the provincial level or even the national level as members of parliament or legislature. So there are certainly many opportunities for councillors.
Mm-hmm. Now, after winning these awards, are these independents coping, or are they just overwhelmed by the responsibility that comes with the job?
Well, it really depends on the person. You know, there are many people who are acting as independents who have a history of community work. They have lots of experience in the local circumstances. They understand their circumstances very well. And that is normally why they are also elected, because they are well known in the community. They've served in the form of local organizations, civic organizations, residents associations, and other types of situations. So very often they are very well experienced. But they have not been directly involved in party politics necessarily, and that is why they become then engaged or become available as a councillor. So quite often they do very well. Where it is a problem is that they are very often caught in the crossfire of the different caucuses of different political parties. Now, if there's a minority of independents and the majority are those of political parties, then they have to decide on which side they are going to vote on what each issue. And that is often quite complicated for them.
Mm-hmm. Are they also positioning themselves as kingmakers in the process?
They can, and in some cases they can, for example, play the role of being, because they are the kingmaker, let's say, in the formation of a coalition government. But the last election in 2011, there were quite a lot of coalition governments, especially in KwaZulu-Natal, the Western Cape and the Northern Cape. And there it can be as a form of reward, like, for example, being the position of the speaker in the council, or even the mayor. Can be a reward for them for their participation in forming a coalition government.
Professor, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks very much.
That was Professor Dirk Kotze, a political analyst from Unisa in our Pretoria studios. Now, that's our theme for today, and we're asking you that very important question.